Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about an incredible empire from Africa's past, the Mali Empire. This was a kingdom that started small but grew into one of the richest and most powerful empires in history. It all began with a leader named Sundiata Keita. He became the ruler of Mali after defeating the kingdom of Sasso in battle. With a strong government, smart diplomacy, and a powerful army, he expanded Mali's territory, making it the largest empire Africa had ever seen at that time. But the most famous ruler of Mali was Mansa Musa. He wasn't just a king, he was one of the wealthiest people to ever live. Under his rule, Mali controlled important trade routes, becoming a center for business, culture, and learning. The empire connected North Africa to the Niger River region, trading gold, salt, copper, ivory, and even enslaved people. With so much trade happening, Muslim merchants arrived in Mali, and their influence spread Islam across the empire. Cities like Timbuktu became famous for their schools and attracted scholars from all over the Islamic world. Even though Mali's cities were thriving, most people lived in rural areas, farming and keeping their traditional beliefs. But no empire lasts forever. By the 1460s, Mali started to decline because of civil wars, new trade routes, and the rise of the Songhai Empire. A small part of Mali remained under its control until the 1600s, but it was never as powerful again. The land where Mali grew had been home to people for thousands of years. This region, known as the Sudan, had villages, farms, and trade long before the Mali Empire existed. Thanks to the Niger River, the land was great for farming, and people grew crops like rice and millet. They also fished, raised animals, and traded things like gold and copper. Before Mali, the Ghana Empire ruled the area, becoming powerful through trade and military strength. But by the 12th century, Ghana was falling apart, and the Sasso kingdom took over, until Sundiata Keita and his people decided to fight back. Sundiata was a determined leader. He gathered other local chiefs who were unhappy with Sasso rule, and in 1235, he defeated their king, Sumanguru, at the Battle of Krina. After that, Sundiata kept expanding his empire, even taking over the old capital of Ghana. He set up a strong government where tribal leaders and important merchants helped make decisions. The empire was officially called Mali, which means the place where the king lives, and Sundiata was made the supreme ruler. Only the Keita family could be kings, but since the title didn't always go to the oldest son, there were sometimes fights over who would rule next. The rulers of Mali had complete control over the empire, and the king, known as the Mansa, was seen as both a leader and a figure with almost magical power. He controlled all the gold in the empire. Only he could own gold nuggets, while traders had to use gold dust. The Mansa was so important that no one could watch him eat, and visitors had to approach him barefoot, bow down, and sprinkle dust on their heads as a sign of respect. Because the government was so centered around one person, the empire's success depended on having a strong leader. When Mali had great rulers like Sundiata and Mansa Musa, it flourished. But when weaker kings took over, the empire started to fall apart. Sundiata made Niani the empire's capital, a city protected by mountains and close to important trade routes. He set up a system where conquered chiefs could keep ruling their own people, but they had to follow orders from a Mali governor, and sometimes had soldiers stationed in their cities. To make sure they stayed loyal, Mali also took hostages from these regions and kept them at the capital. This strategy helped Mali grow into one of the richest empires in history. Foreign travelers who visited Mali were amazed by the fairness of its justice system, the safety of its roads, and the amount of food available in villages. Trade was the key to Mali's success. The empire's location between the rainforests of West Africa and the Islamic states of North Africa made it an important link in regional trade. The Niger River made it easy to transport goods, while camel caravans carried items across the Sahara. Mali's rulers made money in three ways: taxing trade, buying and selling goods for a profit, and controlling valuable resources like gold. Mali had some of the richest gold mines in the world in places like Galam, Bambouk, and Buri. Gold was in high demand in Europe, especially in places like Spain and Italy, where they needed it for their coins. One of the biggest trades was swapping gold dust for salt, which was very valuable at the time. One of Mali's most famous cities was Timbuktu. Originally founded around the year 1100 by the Tuareg people, it became a huge trade center because of its location near the Niger River and the trans-Saharan trade routes. Mali's rulers eventually took over the city, turning it into one of Africa's most important and diverse trade centers. Traders in Timbuktu exchanged goods like ivory, textiles, horses, sugar, and cola nuts. But Timbuktu wasn't just about trade. It became a center for learning, attracting scholars from all over. People used different forms of currency, like gold ingots, salt slabs, and even cowrie shells from Persia. And after a series of weak rulers, the Mali Empire became powerful again under Mansa Musa I in the early 14th century. He was not just any king, he ruled with a massive army of about 100,000 soldiers, including 10,000 cavalrymen on horseback. With the help of his skilled general, Saran Mandian, he not only maintained the empire but also doubled its size. Mali stretched from the Gambia and Senegal in the west, to the Niger River in the east, from the Sahara in the north, to the gold-rich forests of the south. This vast empire included many different cultures, languages, and religions. To govern such a large and diverse land, Mansa Musa divided it into provinces, each ruled by a governor, or farba, who handled taxes, justice, and local issues. He also kept detailed records and sent reports to the central government in Niani. With more trade routes under control and more resources available, Mali's leaders became incredibly rich. When Mansa Musa traveled through Cairo in 1324 on his pilgrimage to Mecca, he gave away so much gold that its value dropped and took years to recover. This sparked stories that Mali was overflowing with gold. By 1375, European mapmakers created one of the first detailed maps of West Africa, showing Mansa Musa wearing a golden crown and holding a huge piece of gold. For centuries, explorers searched for this legendary land of wealth and its famous city, Timbuktu. Islam had been in Mali for a long time, brought by Arab traders. Some accounts claim even the empire's founder, Sundiata Keita, converted to Islam, but Malinke oral traditions suggest he followed the traditional beliefs of his people. However, Islam gained more influence under later rulers, especially Sundiata's son, Mansa Uli, who traveled to Mecca in the 1260s or 1270s. Islam truly flourished under Mansa Musa. His journey to Mecca had a huge impact. Inspired by what he saw, he brought back Muslim architects, scholars, and books. He built mosques, including the famous Djeng Reber Mosque in Timbuktu, and supported centers of learning. Timbuktu became famous for its universities, attracting scholars from across the Islamic world. These schools taught not just religion, but also subjects like history, geography, astronomy, and medicine. Libraries in Mali held tens of thousands of manuscripts, some of which still exist today. As Islam spread, more clerics arrived, and the religion became a key part of West African culture. Many scholars studied in cities like Fez, Morocco, before returning home to teach. Over time, Islam was no longer seen as foreign. It became part of Mali's identity. However, traditional beliefs did not disappear completely. Many rural communities continued practicing their ancestral religions, and even in cities, Islamic practices in Mali developed differently from those in the Arab world. Local customs and traditions remained part of everyday life. One of the most lasting legacies of Mali is its architecture. Since stone was rare in the region, buildings were constructed using banko, a mix of beaten earth and wooden beams. These structures, like the mosques of Timbuktu, Mopti, and Djenné, were tall and sturdy, featuring large doors, multi-level towers, and impressive minarets. Warehouses called fondaks stored goods before they were sent to markets, and some even had living spaces for merchants. Excavations at Niani show that wealthier Malians built homes with stone foundations, while others lived in mud brick houses with wooden roofs and packed earth floors. Mali also had a rich cultural tradition. The Malinka people passed down history through spoken stories, told by griots, storytellers who preserved the past through music and word of mouth. Some songs were reserved for great warriors and hunters. Music was a key part of religious festivals, with masked dancers performing to drum beats and stringed instruments. Meanwhile, artists created pottery, wood and brass sculptures, and stone carvings. Many of these artworks depicted people in realistic poses, sometimes showing signs of illness, suggesting they may have been used for rituals or burials as well as decoration. By the 15th century, the Mali Empire was weakening. There were no clear rules for who would be the next ruler, leading to fights between brothers and uncles for the throne. Meanwhile, new trade routes allowed rival kingdoms to grow stronger. The Songhai Empire, led by King Suni Ali, took advantage of Mali's struggles and conquered much of its land by 1468. European ships, especially those from Portugal, began trading along the West African coast, challenging the old Saharan trade routes. Attacks by the Tuareg in 1433 and the Mossi people from the south further weakened Mali's power. Eventually, what was left of the empire was taken over by the Moroccan Empire in the mid-1600s. Even though the Mali Empire declined, its influence lasted for centuries. Its wealth, culture, and achievements in trade and education shaped West Africa long after its fall.